Hello, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Beyond the Art and our series, The Stories That Carry Us. I'm your host, Craig Beaumont Flynn, a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the Delaware Tribe of Indians. In each episode, we will discuss with various Native American artists, influencers, art leaders, and everyone in between their experiences, the communities they serve, and the translation and interpretation of the Native American art world today. Well, welcome to Beyond the Art. Today we have Kauwika Harris, a filmmaker and screenwriter that's Chalk Dot and Hawaiian. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. Well, we're going to start out right off the top and tell us a little bit about what you do, your personal background, and your cultural heritage and how that's incorporated into what you do as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I mostly recognize with I mostly identify with my mother's Hawaiian heritage. That's sort of what I grew up with. My mother's side, she's from Hawaii. Her dad, my grandpa, is full-blood Hawaiian. He's from Molokai. And her mother is from Oklahoma, which is my grandma, and she had Choctaw citizenship. Mm-hmm. And so that's a descendancy tribe. And so I have a CDIB card for the Choctaw Nation, which is now, it's out of Oklahoma where I live. But I mostly grew up identifying with my mother's Hawaiian heritage just because I grew up around my mother. My mother raised me and stuff like that. But there wasn't a lot of Hawaiian heritage in Oklahoma. You can imagine. So
true, yeah. Kind of the land in the middle of nowhere, but yeah.
Right.
What inspired you to become a filmmaker and screenwriter?
Just loving movies at an early age. Like I was saying, that we talked about before, growing up, my parents got divorced at a very young age, and being I wasn't a very rambunctious kid or a rebellious kid or loud. I was very quiet, and I could recognize when other people were emotionally hurt or conflicted, and so I would just try to ease that conflict a little bit and stay out of things and keep the attention off me. And so late 80s, early 90s, we had VHS tapes, and there was a gas station, and we'd drive home from school and we'd just rent these $2 VHS tapes. And I would just rent 2 or 3 at a time, and I'd come home and just kind of stay out of the way. And I would just watch movies because I didn't have, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have any money growing up. Uh-huh. And so there wasn't HBO, or obviously there wasn't any Netflix or any subscription stuff like that in my life. It was just basic television and then a VHS player. And so I would just watch movies, and that was sort of my escape, outside of my head, outside of the problems of the world. And I just felt like at an early age that I connected with the emotional themes of the stories. It wasn't just purely entertainment. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch it for that because I was going through an emotional sort of phase in my life. And so I somehow just connected to those themes that sort of more mature movies gave me. And like I was telling you, there's a movie called A Perfect World that Clint Eastwood did in 93 with Kevin Costner. And I remember being 10 years old, renting this movie, and I rented it mostly because it was Clint Eastwood. I don't think I really knew Costner outside of Revenge or The Untouchables or anything like that. But I remember watching that movie, and it was about a guy who breaks out of prison. It's set in the 50s or the 60s, and he kidnaps this little boy, and they go on this sort of road trip movie, and we find out that this boy doesn't have a father and he's not present in his life. And then Kevin Costner's character sort of becomes a de facto father figure. And though we know he's the antagonist of the movie, in some ways he's a good guy. Uh-huh. And he tries to teach this boy life lessons. And meanwhile, you got the police hunting him down, Clint Eastwood's character. And it just sort of collides at the end. But I remember just connecting to that movie, and that was the first time I thought to myself, whoa, okay, movies can do this.
Right.
And I think from that moment on, is when I really just I had to figure out a way to do it. But I never knew anybody in cinema, or I never knew anybody in filmmaking where I grew up in Spiro, Oklahoma, I graduated with 80 people, and nobody was in the film industry. There's no writers, there's no directors, producers, I didn't have money growing up. So there's no access to that world. And so it took me sort of getting outside of my comfort zone in order to find what that was.
Right.
And that was college, after high school, then the military, and then sort of playing in a rock band and sort of slowly giving myself the permission to be creative and not have to have someone's permission to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it took some maturity and living some life and learning lessons of life and being 31 years old before I ever started. Now I'm about to be 41. So, been doing it for 10 years now. And I think the maturity side of it, starting later, definitely helped me find that old feeling I used to have in 1993 when I was watching movies. So when I try to tell movies and stories now as I write movies, I try to be authentic to my themes and upbringing and infuse that with emotions that I knew. And hopefully that resonates with an audience. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. So, is there any part of your indigenous identity that influences your work?
Yes. Yes and no. I mean, when I first started making films, I worked in tribal leadership. Like I worked as a casino manager for a couple of years for Delaware Nation in Anadarko, Oklahoma, which is the Indian capital of the nation.
Absolutely.
And
I'm Delaware. Woo!
Delaware Nation. Yeah. And then after that, I got into public relations for the tribe and ended up sort of like working in their sort of government relations. And I did that for 5 years. And so when I was working with them, I was writing and directing my own short films. And then that sort of it was an easy transition to get into on the tribal side when I saw what they were doing, and I saw that there was a lack of content from them in that regard.
Right.
And so I thought this is a space that I might be able to help fill and help tell their stories. And it meant a lot to me to help find and sort of reconnect with my heritage. And so that's what I did. We went up into the Northeast in 2016 and spent 2 weeks making a feature documentary called The Water Gap: Return to the Homeland. And it was about, these tribal youth who have never been to their ancestral homelands, and what happens when you take them and you put them back in their old ways and let them rediscover their old indigenous ways from 100 years ago, what that means for them. And so there was a really emotional story there, and I think it resonated very, very strongly with the tribe and some of the elders who participated in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately after that, went straight into the Standing Rock. We went up to Standing Rock and lived for 9 days. And I remember watching the videos. Everybody had a cell phone video they were posting back then in 2016 that Standing Rock was happening, and working with the tribes in the Midwest. I remember asking a bunch of questions to tribal leadership, and none of them really knew what was happening. And so I just put together, a packet for production, and I said, "Hey, let's go figure out what's going on, and let us try to document this." And of course, they got behind that idea, and then literally within a week, we were off, and we went there and stayed and shot another documentary. And I'm very proud of that film. It's called "I Stand: The Guardians of the Water," and it won a Heartland Emmy. And so, making those films and several shorts that had to do with Native American culture and Native American cast members and crew, and then working with the tribe, and it helped me to, again, it's all like, I think film, where I'm at now, when I look at all the pieces of the puzzle, and all of them just sort of came together in a different way, and they all informed a different side of me to get me to where I'm at now. And so I'm very thankful for those films and to have those opportunities to tell those stories and work with those people and to be where I am now. But yeah.
So is there a particular process that you go through when you're writing a screenplay and producing a film?
Oh yeah. I mean, you can talk for a week on that stuff because
Yeah.
that's what I do for a living. There's it's not a hobby. It's not just a weekend, thing. It's like
Right.
what I do in the office 5 days a week, 6 days, actually 24/7. There's no resting. But screenwriting for me, like I went to a film school after the military, and I went to school to be a director of photography. And I went to a 2-year program at Collins College in Phoenix, Arizona. And for whatever reason, when I came back to Oklahoma, I was looking for a certain type of story to tell and to shoot. And I wasn't finding that story. And so I basically just decided, you know what, if you're not finding it, then create it yourself. So I sat down and I was always been a voracious reader of screenplays and novels. And so I knew how stories kind of naturally flowed. And then of course, just watching movies, if you're smart enough and observant enough, you can pick up on it.
Right.
And so I just sat down and started doing it. And I'd write a bunch of short films, and I would just put all the money I made outside of whatever money I was saving outside of paying bills and whatever, I put right into my films. From 31 to 36-ish, I don't think I saved $1. It all went on the screen. And I just did it myself. I sat down, I wrote it. Then I was like, okay, I might as well just direct this myself. I might as well just go with it, get the camera and shoot it, produce it. Well, I'm going to have a budget to pay crew members. Okay, I need $4,000, and I would go raise the money. I'd either save it myself, or I would go out and I would dare I say bum money. But once you make a couple of things, and if they're a couple of short films, and if they're good, and you put it in a local festival and it's a nomination or a win, you start building momentum around yourself in the community, and people see that you're not just doing this for a hobby. Like you can tell in the filmmaking and the storytelling that it's more there.
Right. There's more substance there and authenticity.
Yes, that's it. And I think people started noticing that about me and the way I talked about projects, and so that's what I did. And in between a short film, I'd already be writing the next project, or I'd be doing a documentary for the tribes, and I would just watch and I'd learn. And of course, I would help this other production company called Three Egos Films out of Lawton, Oklahoma. They were some young guys at a college, and they were really talented. And so I'd go help them on their productions, and they'd help me on my productions. And so I'd watch them in between and help however I could, and just kept learning as much as I could. And then I was writing the screenplays, the features. And I've written over 25 movies.
Wow.
But that's over the course of 10 years. And so I would just write movies. When you're first starting off, you're just going to write whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like you're going to write 5 screenplays, and they're going to be all over the place. They're not going to have any sort of thematic tie-in, or for whatever reason, when we first began, we want to sell this $1 million screenplay to Hollywood, which is just crazy. But once I wrote a screenplay called Blood Roots, and that's what got me repped in LA. And it wasn't until I became more authentic to myself as a storyteller, and with regard to heritage and culture, that my writing got noticed. So when I tell young writers now, after seeing sort of what I've done up until this point, it's, if you want to save yourself some time, go inside first. Don't just write whatever you think everybody wants to watch. Don't write the next alien invasion thriller, because Hollywood's got 50 guys on standby that can do that right now on payroll. So what you want to do is you want to write something that's authentic to you. Maybe you know what it's like to live with the death of a parent, or just something thematic that is emotionally conflicted to yourself. And if you know how to do that, go inward and then come out with it on the page, then Hollywood's not going to look at your material, and they're not going to hire some John Jacob Smith to rewrite your story. Right. Because it's so authentic on a page that they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where, I could have saved myself a lot of time if I'd have known that. But again, I had no training in screenwriting or other than just reading books or watching movies and stuff like that. At film school, they didn't teach me about breaking down screenplays and understanding what that meant.
The cycle of it all.
Yeah. It was mostly just, I went to school to be a DP, so a director of photography. So it was cinematography, videography that I learned. So,
do you start with like a treatment, or do you have a pretty much set story in your mind when you decide, okay, well, I'm going to further develop this into a story and then film or whatever? Or is there an outline that you start with saying, okay, this is something I think that may be interested in and build upon that way?
My managers and agents would love for me to do outlines, and beat sheets, but no, that's not how I work. What I do is I just kind of go through life, and I'll read something or I'll see something and I do a lot of research. Something might inspire, some little nugget of an idea,
right?
And from there, it just I just start thinking about character. Start with a character, like who are we going to follow through this movie? We're seeing through this person's eyes, and I learned after I got my managers and took 300 meetings in Hollywood and developed several things with producers and directors, how to develop screenplays. So I can sit down now, and when I get that idea, that basic sort of, origin of an idea, who's this character I'm going to follow through? Why are they interesting to this world? And then just start asking myself the questions that have to be answered. Like, what does this character want? Like, what does it want physically that he can pick up in his hand at some point in the story? What does he want? Like, but then what does he need to discover along the way that overpowers his want in some way, so it becomes change for the character? And like, what is it that's flawed about this person? Like, what's haunting that person? And then what stands in his way of achieving this thing? It's the antagonist. It seems like a basic formula, but then if you can get really creative and learn how to, get in there and sort of bend the rules, you can hide the formula in storytelling, right? And so that's what I do now. And it's just like a puzzle piece. But I just do it all in my head. And I might create like a Word document page and put the title of a movie, and then just put like thoughts. This is a character. This is his name. This is what he does. And I just do that, and it'll get 20 pages worth of stuff, and then I can literally in my head know what the beginning of the movie is, all through every beat. I'll just sort of know it in my head, and once it reaches critical mass, it's time to like go to the page and then get it out of your head now. But like, I've worked on done beat sheets and outlines, but I feel like for me, just outlines and stuff are always something that people want you to do early. And if you do it before it's ready, you'll do all that, and then you'll feel like you have to write based on that.
Right.
And then it throws me off a little bit, because now I'm having to write within the confines of that. Or I'm also one of these guys that changes things a lot. I might do 30 drafts of a screenplay. That's another thing about writers. Like I see a lot of young writers, they'll write a screenplay and they're like, it's my first draft. Read it. It's great. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
You'll just sit with it for a while.
Yeah. Let it breathe.
Let it breathe. Go back and reread it in a couple of weeks. Go for long walks. Go watch some other movies. Go read another script. And then come back and revisit it. And I guarantee you're going to find something about it you want to change. And then sometimes when I talk to young writers, I always tell them, about as soon as the word rewrite comes out of my mouth or any producer's mouth, the writer is going to be like,
yeah,
like rewrites, really?
But territorial.
yeah, exactly. But it's like, I think it's framed wrong. I learned, like in development, that a rewrite could be, well, we're going to do a rewrite. We're going to do a pass. But this time, we're only going to do a pass based on dialogue and how it reflects theme. So you don't have to worry about anything else. Just look at your dialogue. If this is what our theme is, now let's go back to the whole film. And if we can find a way to like use through subtext to establish the theme stronger, that's the only rewrite you do. And then the next one might be, well, let's work on our slug lines. So go do another pass and just on your slug line, or stuff like that.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, page 1 rewrite.
Yeah.
Just I feel like Hollywood's not very specific. And so like for me, I like to be very specific. This is what my focus is on, this rewrite, this thing only. And then just make that really good.
Yeah. Especially in the aspect of, you're reading something that's one-dimensional, but to vision it into a form that's captivating and draws in the audience. You want to make sure that that flow is there, because reading it could just be very flat and one-dimensional.
Correct.
Was there a time that you look back within the last 10 years and thought to yourself, I have a career, I have a profession, I'm at that point?
Yeah. Actually, I had that thought this morning.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm doing this. You're always, I see it within myself. You get in a hurry. You build momentum behind a lot of things that you're doing, and then you start to see the momentum paying off. And then it gets a real moment. We like to call it. And then everything happens. And it's just, you can sense all the energy around you. But, like even this morning, for instance, it's like as soon as I wake up in the morning, I've got like 6 emails, and those emails are like investors, or it's production crew members, or they've got a lot of questions. And it's, now it's the point where the thing that I created is always working for me. You know what I mean? But it took all those years and all that momentum to get there. And then once that happens, it's just always there. But it's also like if you're driving down the interstate and you're going 80 miles an hour, you got your foot on the gas. If you take this exit, you're like, I'm going to drive around for a little while and just look at the sights. That can be dangerous too for a career, right? Because you let off that gas for just a little bit, or if you don't answer, it's about moving information. And if the people around you aren't getting that information at the right time, then they let off the gas too. Right. There's a miscommunication and confusion, and so to get to where I've gotten to at this point, and whatever the success that might be, I don't know. For everybody, it's different, but I can't let off the gas now. It feels like so I've created the monster, and sometimes, but I'm very thankful to be where I'm at, doing what I do, and I have to remind myself to hey, this is working for you now. You've done the heavy lifting, and now it's working. So sometimes I have to tell myself, you can slow down a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
1 or 2 miles slower.
Yeah.
Is there a time in the last 10 years that you look and see the own transition yourself, reflective of your story in this industry, of how you change and how it's developed you as a screenwriter and filmmaker?
I mean, I think all it's really done is just the more people you meet, the more you hear this sort of thing being said, and the more you sort of go inside and bring it all out of you. I think that's where and that might take years. That might not take just a one-time sit down and do that. It could take years of kind of journeying in and then journeying out. But I think you have to have that ability to recognize what people are saying to you. Yeah. Sometimes you might go out to Hollywood and do meetings for a week, do 20 meetings, and you might walk out of there thinking, I'm going to be a millionaire.
I hit it big.
There's just this idea, that's why I've had the opportunity to live in Hollywood or move to Hollywood, and I just don't want to, because every time I'm there, I feel like as soon as you get off the airplane and you're carrying your luggage down the track, you're just like, there's just an energy here, and it's infectious, and you just want to be there. But it's like, I also recognize that there's everybody in the world's doing it, trying to do it there, and I'm just a small fish in the ocean. Or I feel like for me, that's why I like staying in Oklahoma. I can lay the foundation here and tell my stories in an authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Hollywood wants to take notice, that's fine. But I've also learned that they don't really care. There's no such thing as gatekeepers in Hollywood.
Right.
I think it's just you got to create your own space. They don't know what to do with you. They want you. They want me. They want everybody to be successful, but they don't know how to like utilize you. Everybody's a writer. Everybody's a director. Everybody's an actor. So they're just. I would imagine you would just be confused. Like,
right.
You blindfold pick somebody. It's like so. You kind of have to just prove yourself, and so that's what I'm doing. And so the people I'm talking to out there now who are like working with me, they're like, you're doing the right thing. Just focus on you, the stories you want to tell, what's important to you and your brand storytelling. And you'll start to just build. You'll create your own space,
mm-hmm.
and then somehow one day you're in sort of the system of Hollywood, and then you're just there.
Right.
And, you just, the gatekeeper's yourself in some ways, it's like,
it's very true.
It's not one person out there with
right.
a key standing guard.
True to any artist or any industry. How do you choose and select your stories that you want to tell? I mean, I'm sure you have a ton, like you said, in your head
mm-hmm.
that are swirling around. How do you say, okay, I'm going to go with this one because this one makes sense to tell now? And holding back others?
Sure. It's a good question. And every time I take on a new project, it becomes a committee meeting mm-hmm. in some ways. And the committee people, I feel like, we want you to do this. You should do that.
Right.
But after you sort of built your momentum up and you start to trust your instincts and hone your instincts, you realize that the thing that you find that you're good at is still being authentic to yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the only way it works. I feel like in a good way,
right?
Where you have a voice, you have a signature, a brand of storytelling. You infuse your emotions in it. So if someone comes along and says, "Hey, Kyle, I got this movie for you. It's finance. Go direct it." We don't want you to have any thoughts on the script. Just shut up and push the record button. It's like. It's never going to work out great. Right. There's a delusion in those people's minds. I feel like that they take not control or power, but the sensibilities. When you take that away from the writers and the directors, then you're just kind of left with this whatever. So for me, again, it's just being authentic to myself. Again, I mean, my last movie that just came out of exile, it's a heist film. With Peter Green from the bad guy in Pulp Fiction and several other, recognizable faces. Mm-hmm. But at the heart of this movie is a father reconnecting with his daughter after being in jail for 16 years. And the movie I'm about to shoot, Reverence, it's about a missing persons thriller about a man who suffers like from PTSD and his daughter goes missing. And sort of what that exposes in him or what that brings up in him again. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden these old sort of wounds are reopened and now he's on a new mission. And, so basically what I'm saying is there's themes there that are reoccurring. So if someone says, "Hey, Kyle, we want to hire you to write the next alien invasion thriller," great. Well, at the heart of it, it's going to be about a failed parenthood.
Right.
Or it's going to be in something in that regard, because that's what I grew up in, I can recognize and I know what that feels like. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, I had a sad, sappy story growing up or anything, but it's like millions of people deal with it all the time.
Yeah. But it's your story.
I just know how to, I knew what that was like. So I can tell that story. And I have my own daughter.
Right.
And she's about to be 18 years old. And now she lives in California. And so there's this distance now. And so it's like, it's not, I'm working out all of those issues as being a parent with those conflicts. And then as I was as a kid. Mm-hmm. And that's why we go to the movies anyways, is to sort of like be a kid again.
Right,
I think
right.
no one goes to the theater to be serious or like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we want to go and just be outside of ourselves
Right.
and feel that feeling, that magic or whatever. And so you got to like find that the emotional core of it, what you're doing. I guess.
So tell us a little bit about your last project and the current one you're working on.
Yeah, Out of Exile. I guess we shot that movie. I mean, it's been a while ago now, during COVID. And it just dropped on January 20th. It came out on Amazon Prime and Apple TV. And it's called Out of Exile. And then this past summer, I shot a couple of short films. The Killing Ground and Charlie Mike, which is this. The Killing Ground is like this proof of concept short film about a serial killer in a small town. And that's the one we just got financing for this spring. And it's based off of a novel called The Huntsman. So we'll shoot that in the spring. But then after that, after I did the Killing Ground short film in June, I did the Charlie Mike short film because I'm also ex-military. And one of my producing partners is ex-military. And so it was a big special forces thing with night vision goggles. It was fun. You know, we went and had a lot of fun and just broed out for a few days in the jungle. And then, so that's finishing VFX and color or sound mix and be ready in November. And then I'm going right into the Missing Persons thriller, November 29th. We start shooting, which is exactly 5 weeks from today. And then we'll wrap out, for the first of the year and then go right into pre-production on The Huntsman. And we'll shoot that mid-March, 1st of April. And then I hope to take a little bit of a break and do more podcasts.
And what? I'm sorry?
Do more podcasts.
Yeah.
Maybe write another screenplay. Yeah.
There you go. Hey, I got some ideas for you.
Yeah.
When you before releasing you and completion of the film, do you do the submittal into the film festivals, or you try to get into the bigger markets?
Yeah, it just depends on what the project is and like how you plan to sell it. We did Out of Exile when I guess it had been 2020. Early 2022, when it was finishing post-production, XYZ saw a cut and they liked it and they came on as our sales agent. And I think it was in AF Film 2022 or right before that. And they went to Saban and several other people like Grindstone and a few others. And Saban bought the film. And then they had like a deal with Paramount. So Saban and Paramount put the movie out. And that's what we did. But we didn't go the festival route with that movie because we sold it straight to distributor. And the distributor wanted to put it out. And we were like, okay, it's fine. I felt like it wasn't a stylistic art house film in any way. So it was probably just, a typical programmer in that sort of sense. So it just needed to be on VOD. But those aren't just the stories I want to tell. I like sort of, the stylized art house films with a mixture of the commercial viability. So, like filmmakers like Denis Villeneuve or, there's so many more of them. You're not coming off the top of my head. Scott Cooper or Jeff Nichols, even some of the early Taylor Sheridan stuff like Sicario and Wind River and Hell or High Water. Those are, programmer stories, but they sort of had like an art house vibe to some of the filmmaking, and it just makes it reach a different sort of level. And that's sort of what my brand, and I feel like, that's the brand that I want to create for myself as a storyteller and with my company, Safe House Films.
Being located in Oklahoma and in the middle of Indian country, and with all the other stuff that's going on in the medium, be it film and television, we're at the ebb and flow of indigenous people being involved in film and television. Do you see there's more recognition of filmmakers and screenwriters, obviously actors, that are participating and being recognized?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, especially here in Oklahoma, there's, I guess after 2016, everything was kind of going out of state.
Right.
There's always been filmmakers here like Sterling Harjo, and he's making films and stuff and making indie films on small budgets. And so there's always been like Native American filmmakers here. But I feel like it wasn't until like 2020, I guess, when Killers of the Flower Moon came to Oklahoma, or started to have the conversations around it, and Reservation Dogs. And then from there is when it's really started. I've seen it sort of growing fast. They recently shot Fancy Dance here, which was the Lily Gladstone, Erica Tremblay's film. So many others. But I mean, I was making films with Native American actors as early as 2017 or 2016 when I was doing the documentaries, and then shorts that were just Native American based in 2017, 2018. So I've known a lot of Native American actors and crew members here for a long time. But it was just a small way, I guess. It wasn't until the bigger movies sort of exposed what that could be. If that answers your question.
It does. Have you also seen that there's been a resurgence of indigenous Native Americans wanting to tell their story instead of it being told second or third hand?
I've seen it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I have a lot of sort of Native American crime thrillers I'm hoping to sort of get made that, I've written several. So that's what I'm hoping to do next, is to go shoot films with more Native American crew, Native American actors, and sort of Native American or an Indian country in general. Like we're talking about shooting in the Cherokee Nation, not just for incentives, but for the crew members and the actors, but then taking it down into Choctaw country, down in southeast Oklahoma, and infusing it with the Choctaw language and just doing our due diligence to like make sure that that we give more options out to people. Like, I feel like it's, what I mean? Like, there's not really been a lot of that stuff until there's always been Native American movies, I guess, Dances with Wolves and whatever, but it's, not till recently where you see Native American filmmakers actually making movies. And, but it's still hard. It's still very hard. I can write a screenplay that's Native American with a Native American lead. I've been doing this for the last year. There's one project in particular, and we get a name actor that's a Native American actor involved. But then you go to, and it goes out to all the production companies and studios to find financing, and it doesn't have any there.
The pool's not there, yeah.
It's just not there. You have to go cast a bad guy with a name, and that's the only way you justifies financing. So you can have an indigenous storyteller, writer, director, producers on the page, Native American actors, crew members, and it doesn't matter yet, like to Hollywood financiers. That does not matter. So you kind of have to figure out what the balance is. You can either self-finance it yourself on a feature film level, but that can take a long time to get movies made that way. To raise $1 million to go do that, you could raise 200,000 or 300,000 pretty quickly, but then you might hit a bump in the road, and then it might take 3 months to secure another 200,000. Well, by the time you got to 500,000, it's been 4 months, 5 months. So that first investor is wondering why it's taking so long. So now he pulls his financing out. So it's like the house of cards always. And so it's tough. It's not easy. And I'm asked that question quite a bit, like, why don't you use more Native American leads in your movies? And it's like, well, I would love to. I would absolutely love to, but no one's financing that. So I keep pushing forward and finding solutions to that while I'm able to still keep making movies that are able to get made and stuff like that. And then eventually, maybe when I build my name up to have enough clout in the industry, or then I can be the Taika Waititi or the Sterling Harjos that can say, okay, this is the movie I'm making, get behind it or not. You know what I mean? But like right now, I'm a nobody in the industry, and no one's just stopping their day to say, you know what, I got to give this Kauwika Harris money. This guy, I got to give him some money. It just doesn't happen, So it's you just kind of got to go with the flow and where the industry kind of takes you sometimes. And
there's a business side to it.
There's a business side to it.
It's not all lights, camera, and action. There's a lot of background work. Was there anything was there anything that really surprised you that you were unaware of when you got into this industry?
Unaware of? Um, yeah. There's lots of things. Everybody is a star. Everybody wants to be the leader. Everybody wants to be the boss, but nobody really. I found in the independent world that there's a lot of people who will open the door and step through and say, "Hey, I'm in this industry too."
Mm-hmm.
And what I found is this industry, in order to make something of yourself or to create projects and see it through from beginning to end, whether it's writing, finding the money, crewing up, shooting the movie, getting it through the editing, get it through post-production, get it through deliverables, get it on the screen, into the on TV. I've found that there's not very many people who will fight from the beginning to see it all the way through. It's I'll also say this a lot, like if you come into the business with the wrong intentions, it will find a way to weed you out. I think. I think it's, if you come in just, I want to ride the coattails of others, or
Right.
I'm going to come in and just kind of throw my weight around and be the big boss and show off, or whatever it is that those intentions are. I feel like it exposes people really fast and will weed them out. So I guess like when you're starting off, you've got to build your team. Like it's not just about, how hard you're willing to work, or going in, journeying in and journeying out on the page, how good your scripts are, or whether you can raise money. You also have to have a team of people around you. And when you're building this sort of foundation for success, that understand that vision and are willing to do as much work as you are to get there.
Right.
And you got to have producers, and you got to have cinematographers and actors and financiers, and all these things have to kind of understand the same thing. And if one thing in the middle of that is sour, you can lose years. You can lose friendships. It can make the house of cards crumble faster and stuff like that. So I tell people, like, build your team, like vet your team. Don't just, Jimmy down the street's really interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's think about it. Is Jimmy really going to do the work? To like what it takes, because it's hard work. It's really a lot of hard work, accountability and responsibility and good communication. And I feel like, over the years, I've seen a lot of people kind of come and go that I thought, maybe we're going to help get there together. And it just, they kind of go away because they see how hard it is. And you're kind of left hanging for a while, like kind of cleaning up a mess or something. And then it just, finally you get out of it, you can move forward. But it's tough. It's tough. There's many facets to the industry than just maybe screenwriting.
Right. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Not as easy as it sounds.
Is there a particular piece of work that you've completed that you were surprised at the response it got? And is there one that you can think of that it didn't get the response that you thought it was going to get?
I haven't, the latter question, I haven't got any of that yet.
Yeah.
But the first one, when I first got repped in LA, it was a movie called Blood Roots, and it was a Native American crime thriller. And so when that kind of got me in the door and people were responding to it in a way, and I remember thinking like, okay, this is exciting. But then, it was the Hollywood structure. Nothing against Hollywood, but it's just, they're not making your movie. And I was a nobody then, just short films and documentaries. And so they're not going to let me go make the movie. And I learned that quickly. And when it came to like my film Out of Exile, being just sort of a studio programmer type movie, I had to ask myself, when I was having those conversations with investors, I could have went and did a sort of art house movie, or I can go do a movie that gets my money back from my investors and build that foundation for those people and build the trust. And then if we're making money, then I can take a little bit of portion of this money to go be artistic and do something experimental. But I never want to do that in the beginning and then ruin the trust of the financiers. So in those conversations I had learned quickly that maybe it's best just to go make a movie that gets distribution, make some money back, and then let's have a conversation on the next one. After we've taken a risk, we've made our we made our funds back, and now let's see if we can take a bigger risk or something. Or if that answers your question,
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think your films fit into a single genre? Are you just kind of wherever the story is that you want to tell?
I think they're mostly just. I think they're crime thrillers. I think that's the stories that I feel like I want to tell, versus just a drama or just a comedy or a horror. Crime, I guess, is sort of like the genre I work in, because it's also good for distribution at the same time. I think it's a little easier to sell those types of movies. And that's just what interests me, I guess, as a reader and a viewer, and whether it be true crime or fictional or.
Do you always try to put an indigenous or Native American twist to it?
Not all of them, no. And not all of them I don't, but several of them I do. They'll be very specific, but not all of them. The one I'm about to shoot isn't Native American. It's just sort of just middle class, lower class, or in a rural, like small rural town, like I grew up in. And so in this case, I just took the small town and just sort of a reflection of the people I'd known growing up. But yes, there's like my next movie I want to write is Native American, sort of central to Native American themes and stuff like that, with characters and whatnot. On this one, I do have Native American characters in the screenplay, but it's not, I guess, the main focus.
Main base.
Yeah.
So what inspires and motivates you to be in this industry and be a creative?
What motivates me?
And inspires,
yeah, it was definitely not money. It's not that. I'm honestly, man, I think it's just the real true like love for it. You've got to have like a healthy obsession for this business to make it. And it can't be like I was saying, it can't be like, I'm going to make millions, I'm going to get famous. And I'm like, yeah, it's all bullshit. Like, honestly, sorry for cussing on your podcast, but
we're not censored. It's all right.
Okay. Yeah, just for me, again, it's just the heart of like the real emotion of it. And the real love for storytelling is there. And I don't care if I have money or not. As long as I can live comfortably, I'm fine. But I just want to be able to tell the stories I want to tell. And that's it. Like, I just really love what I do. And if you really love what you do, those long hours don't feel like long hours. They don't feel like when you get up in the morning. I've worked in the oil field. And I remember what that was like.
Right.
And you have to go do a 12-hour day on the floor, and you're getting your fingers crushed all day, and it's negative 10 degrees outside. And so like, you're just dreading your day. Like, I don't dread my day. I love every bit of it. And it's a constant learning experience and meeting new people. But you just got to love it. You really got to, on a DNA level.
Have you ever thought about being on the other side of the camera?
Yes, several times. Oh, you mean as an actor?
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't work.
No?
It wouldn't. No, I'm too short. And nothing against, short.
Hey, Tom Cruise is short, so.
Yeah, and he's probably like my height. I'm 5'8". And but I've got tattoos and long hair, and
there's nothing wrong with tats. But
as a filmmaker, like when I go cast someone like that, who, you know what I mean? Like, and then I have to hide the tattoos.
Right.
So that's an extra hour in the chair. And then he's got long hair, and I really need it to be short. So can you just pull your hair up the whole movie? And it's just, there's a conversation around every piece. I don't know. I guess it's just, I'm more of an introvert in the sense that I would rather be behind the camera and just not thinking about this stuff, and just like thinking about the stories and the emotions and putting that into that. I think I have done short films where I've acted in them and stuff. But I'm too much of a self-critiquer on my, I don't know. Like I'm looking at myself right now on your podcast. It looks like my face is bent sideways. I had this like self-image thing, man. Like I just don't understand what that means. Like it just distorts me. Like I don't know what it is. It's weird. I don't get it. Yeah.
Self-critiquing, then you must be an actor.
Yeah.
Do you think you take challenges as a filmmaker?
Take challenges?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every day is a challenge as a filmmaker. Every day is a challenge because you're constantly it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's strategy. Like filmmaking is all strategy until you get to a place where it's like critical mass and then it just happens. But like in the beginning of any film project, it's strategy. And it's like, and if your strategy is off a little bit, the film's going to fall apart. And so you've got to be able to think 5, if not 10 steps ahead all the time. And even on independent films, like when you get to your movie sets, you have to do that too.
Right.
Just because the budgets aren't big enough to justify a major props budget or whatever it is. And so you kind of have to be like constantly thinking like, if there's not enough money in the budget for certain things, then it's not going to be there. So how do I create this? How do I get ahead of this problem, and create it myself, figure out a way to create it myself. So I'm still doing that always.
Is there anyone in particular that you want to work with or collaborate on a project?
Too many to count. Too many to count. I mean, with my film Bloodroot, that seems to be like the next sort of thing that I want to really put myself into after these next 2 feature films that we're about to shoot back to back. So maybe next fall, we'd shoot that project. But like we have Martin Sinsmeyer attached to star in the lead role. I've worked with Martin a couple of times, never as a writer, never as a director actor, but as writers and producers. And so, it gets to get to work with him as a director and an actor relationship would be really cool. I think he's a cool guy. I got to spend a week with him doing research for the Jim Thorpe biopic that I got to write a couple of drafts on. And then, of course, Wind River 2 that just shot in Calgary. And I got to write a couple of drafts of that movie for them. And, of course, Martin, we're friends in that. He's like, Kyle, I like his writing. You should talk to these guys, these producers. And he would introduce me to those producers. And then it's up to me to seal the deal ultimately. But he's believed in me and he's helped a lot in that regard. And so I'd love to get this movie made with him and maybe go work with Tantu Cardinal and several other people in the industry that, I'm excited to work with a lot of people, even some bigger directors of photography and producers and just lots of people.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to get the word out. Start. Is there, I would assume that most of your work that you've completed is all in the contemporary form. It's all to date. Have you ever thought about doing something that's more period piece?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I've written a couple of things that are period piece. And then as soon as I even try, they're just like, no. But yeah, I've written several things that are Native American centric that are period pieces. And then there's a couple of books I've read that I'd love to do. I mean, there's a book that I read recently. Let's see here. Flight of the Sparrow was one book I read recently. That was a sort of back in the 1600s and stuff like that, 1700s. There's obviously there's other things that I like too, like The Shootist. There's an old John Wayne movie called The Shootist. The Jim Swarthout, I think Jim Swarthout was the author for that. But they're just like something like the Coen brothers would revisit that. I think would be great. Like they did True Grit, Charles Bronson. Like The Shootist with Jeff Bridges or someone to come back and play that old John Wayne role. I think those themes of the turning of the century and a dying outlaw and the fame of it, of what he had. And then, of course, he's dying of cancer and he puts it out to the world. Like anybody that wants to meet me in the streets and take the fame,
here I am.
Put me down. Here I am. It's just got all these kind of things. I think it's time for The Shootist to be remade. I would love to get to do that, but I'm in no place to even, get there for a long time. But there's a lot of movies. Bass Reeves. I noticed that Taylor Sheridan's got a new Bass Reeves TV series coming out. And I don't know from what angle he's taking it from, but I mean, I grew up near Fort Smith, Arkansas. And my grandpa did a lot of time. Like he'd go out there and he would talk to all the people that would visit and stuff. And so when I was a kid, I'd go out there with him and, he'd give me a quarter for a Mountain Dew or something. And I'd have to sit there all day and listen to him talk to these people over and over again. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, this is boring. And but then now that I'm an adult and I think back on it, I'm like, oh, that was so cool. Like,
right.
It was some of the best things of my childhood. And so I know some stories about like Bass Reeves that should be in the movies, like, yes, he was an African-American lawman who could speak multiple Native American languages. And he was just a general badass for Judge Isaac Parker. But like there's a lot you can do with a movie there. Right. But like, I don't know if people really know that he was actually took the bounty on his own son after his son killed his own wife and then fled into Indian territory. And then all the other, Judge Isaac Parker puts out this thing and says, who's going to take him down? And now all these U.S. Marshals were like, well, that's Bass's son. I don't know if I should take this, and so Bass is like, I'll go get him, and then he has to go into this Indian territory and get his own son who's wanted for murder while he's up against these bounty hunters who are trying to take him down at the same time and get this reward. So I feel like there's a lot of themes there about fathers and sons but about justice and injustice. And this is the time like when Judge Parker was dying of his disease. And so there's like this Bass Reeves and Judge Parker have worked together for 20 years. And it's like a father-son relationship in that regard. He gave Bass that opportunity to be something more. And it's like, there's just so many cool things there to explore, I feel like, with a Bass Reeves movie like that. And so that's how, if I was to tell period piece movies, it's like, I want to tell stuff like that has a thematic underlying thing with a character and not just making nothing against this movie, but like, I would not do like the Magnificent Seven remake.
Right.
I just, it's fun.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like I like movies that talk to me and like live inside me for a lot longer. Those are my favorite movies. And so wouldn't you want all movies that you make to be a favorite movie for somebody and not just like fluff?
Yeah. With a connection too, you're the storyteller. There's got to be a connection.
Right. Yeah.
So what advice would you give someone that wants to get into this industry, Kyle?
What advice?
What would you have told yourself 10 years ago?
That's a tough one because I think you have to fail a lot to understand how to win. I think we come into this industry and you automatically want it to win the first time.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you wonder like, oh, I guess it's not made for me. I can't do it.
Right.
Luckily for me, my stepdad who raised me was a high school football coach and he was tough as nails. And there was no winning ever.
Right.
It was like you're always working. And so if you got a broken hand, wrap it up. You're going to go out there on that field and you're going to play with a broken hand. It was kind of like that. And so having just all those pieces in my life all kind of play a little factor into who I am now. And you kind of have to go into the business with that healthy obsession, being able to journey inside authentically to come out, and then have that sort of ability to communicate with people and to be creative and vulnerable and emotional without being too eccentric, but then also having the ability to fail and know how to get back up again. And I think, I don't know how the younger people do it now, because I don't know about just young people today. I don't know about work ethic yet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do.
You know what I mean? I don't know about it. I'm watching it. I love young people. There's a lot of, they can do a lot. There's so much more things. I never even had a cell phone until I was like going in the military. So it's like, I was never surrounded by social media until recently. My Instagram is literally 2 years old. So it's, I don't even know how to work that very well. I still have problems posting a story. But I just feel like it's, there's a work ethic and like, just the ability to fail and know that that's not actually failure. That there's winning in failure because it teaches you how to overcome obstacles.
Right.
And if you don't know how to overcome obstacles in this business, you're never going to get anywhere. And in every stage, there's a new obstacle. There's 100 obstacles in each phase. So you have to be able to navigate things in a way where, just it doesn't bother you. People tell you no.
Right.
Or someone quits on you. You can't just like, okay, thank you.
I agree with you. You got to fail to learn to know how to win.
Yep. That's it.
Well, as we wrap up, Kyle, is there anything else you want to share or tell us and promote?
Man, I don't know. I don't know that I have enough to promote yet. I'm still trying to figure it all out. I'm still a new guy.
What's next for you?
Yeah, what's next? I mean, like I said, Out of Exile came out January 20th. And then I just shot those 2 short films back to back. And then we're financed for 2 features in a row. So shooting Reverence on November 29th. And then we're shooting The Huntsman in the spring. And then hopefully next fall, I can look at doing Bloodroot. And that sort of be like a Native American crime thriller. It's the story in the project that means the most to me. And hopefully from there, in another year, 2 years, when those movies start coming out, maybe at that point, we should talk again.
Yeah.
Then I'll let you know.
Absolutely.
how I feel about it. Where I'm at in the world.
Is there anything that you want to do that you haven't tried in this industry that you want to partake in? I
thought about, every now and then it gets really, really hard. It gets really hard. I've had several film projects just fall apart at the last second. That was like 3 weeks before filming, and the financier just pulls the plug on $500,000 or something. And then that's hard. That's just like a slap in the face. And when you put all that work into it, so that's only because I'm a writer, producer, director. And so you fight so hard to bring that project to life because you can't do multiple projects at once because of the financiers and how it muddles the money. Right. And stuff. And so you can put 4 or 5 months of your life into something as a writer, producer, director, and then it fall apart, and then you're left with nothing, and then you got to start from scratch again. But like, I went to school to be a director of photography, and so there's a part of me that just maybe wants to go back and just be a DP and just focus on take the script, and then how we're going to shoot this thing. What's the cinematic language of this movie? That would be awesome. And then I found myself saying this all the time. I should have been a novelist. And I should have been, because I love novels, and I've 25 screenplays collecting dust on hard drives that are 120 pages long. I mean, all I got to do is go in there and add a page of description between each page, and I've got a 240 page novel. So it's, but then that's its own road of its own, long road to success at the same time. So it's like, each one of them takes time. And so I'm at 41 years old, coming up on 41. It's like, how much time am I willing to spend at this point when I'm already kind of got the foundation in film, So it's just using good sense. I should probably just stick with this thing until it really falls apart, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, well, it's been a pure joy to have you on the show, and thank you for the time. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you did. I'm sorry that, things happen every day now that we're getting closer to filmmaking, and it's getting crazy. And it was like pouring down rain this morning, so I just had to put on a sweater. No worries. Well,
Kyle, congrats and much success to you. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was a lot of fun. Really appreciate it. Thank you.